Oh, shocking, he's doing another Little Mermaid video. No, you listen here, buddy boy. This is my ultimate Little Mermaid video, so strap on your flippers and get ready to... No, that's stupid. Okay, so this video was initially gonna be sort of a script doctor situation where I just fixed what I believe could have improved the script for the live action Little Mermaid, and then it turned into a whole rewrite of the script, and then it led me to concocting a completely different approach and vision for the film with some elements of what we actually got sprinkled in. So like I said, strap in because I have so much to say and so many ideas, ranging from who should have directed the movie to how it should have looked to a complete story outline. And I spiraled down this rabbit hole because there is just endless potential for a live action Little Mermaid, especially one with real life siren princess Halle Bailey playing Ariel. Such an inspired, exciting casting choice for such a dry film. And I personally am just coping and vocalizing my frustrations because they just did the bare minimum when greatness was dangling right in front of them. And obviously, different strokes for different folks. Not all of you will agree with me, that's fine, but the reality is that many people who were excited about this film were left very underwhelmed, especially by director Rob Marshall's very bland, basic direction, which is far from what people would expect of a Disney mermaid fantasy movie. Not to mention one that is specifically based on a beloved, iconic film that already comes with its own expectations. And this didn't need to be the case at all. We should be demanding more from the professional artists who are supposed to be the best at what they do and are being backed by insane amounts of money. We should expect more impressive results from the media we consume, considering all the resources that go into productions like this. And this film has objective weaknesses you can pinpoint to exhibit why so many people found it to be lackluster when that was so avoidable. Yes, Rob Marshall may not have intended to make this a lavish, opulent fairy tale, but I don't even think he succeeded in the more grounded approach he was going for. It was very tonally inconsistent and atmospherically indistinctive, and the excuse that they wanted to focus more on the story than the razzle-dazzle just doesn't hold weight for me, because not only did the script stick so close to the blueprint of the animated version, but the storytelling was sloppy and the new material was very underdeveloped, which I'll get into when I give you my ideal approach. But before I get into it, I just want to remind everyone of where I stand. Unlike most self-proclaimed cinephiles, I don't think Disney live-action adaptations are inherently bad at all, and I talk about them on my channel so often because I think there's so much potential within them if approached with the right intent. And it's just extremely frustrating to see time and time again that the live-action films are proving everyone right when they don't need to. It's only natural when seeing an animated movie to envision what it would be like in real life, and Disney live-action adaptations so frequently fail to live up to people's imaginations. They often just retread the animated films with less life, less artistry, and less understanding of the stories being told. But there's value within experiencing familiar stories in different mediums and through different perspectives. Disney live-action adaptations should not be trying to replace the animated versions or solely exist to correct any outdated ideals. That's not how anyone would view the Broadway adaptations, because the intention there is to experience the beloved stories and iconography through a different medium with different things to offer, and that's exactly what the function of a live-action film should be, to act as a companion piece to the animated film that exists alongside it and adds to its legacy. It should translate the more abstract, simple, impressionistic nature of its animated counterpart into a more complex, nuanced, tangible world, and lean into the advantages of the medium of live action instead of trying to simply regurgitate material that was created specifically for animation. Show us the same beloved story and iconography through a more three-dimensional lens and adjust whatever necessary to fit this more lifelike medium. That's the winning approach, and that's how I will be approaching my take on The Little Mermaid. And hopefully this will give Disney a better idea of what to do with the future adaptations, because they're gonna happen no matter what, and we should want movies to be good. And also, hopefully this will help Disney course correct with any potential Little Mermaid sequels, which I think Halle Bailey deserves. Okay, so let's get to re-envisioning this film. Once again, you're not gonna agree with everything, but this is what the ultimate live-action Little Mermaid would look like in my eyes. First of all, we're gonna have Rob Marshall step down from the director position due to being overwhelmed by the demands of the project, and he can just be a producer. He just does not have the visionary sensibilities, ambition, or directorial skills to be the captain of this ship. I made a video on who I think should have directed each Disney live-action adaptation, so I'm not really gonna get into it, but I would employ either Alfonso Cuarón or Gore Verbinski, and the vibe we're going for is grand, epic, sweeping fantasy that pushes the boundaries of filmmaking technology and visual effects and feels like an event. Kind of like a more magical, lighthearted Pirates of the Caribbean with an even bigger scale. Also, I'd take inspiration from the dramatic aesthetic of 18th century paintings, but add a more lively, enchanting Disney flair. I'd want it to be shot on film rather than digital, or at least emulate the look of film in post-production, because it makes the image softer, warmer, textured, more enchanting, more painterly, richer colors, and less digital looking. Cinderella is the only Disney live-action shot on film, by the way, and for Little Mermaid in particular, I think it'd benefit the underwater world so that everything doesn't look so sharp, especially the edges, because that just makes it look less aquatic. The highlights in particular would look magical with a soft, subtle glow. For costume designer, Pierre-Yves Guéraud. We can keep the cast the same, except sorry, we're replacing Melissa McCarthy. On paper, she sounds like she'd be a suitable fit for Ursula, but watching the movie, her performance was so forced and she felt like she was in a different movie from everyone else. We would need to use an actress who could bring more gravitas to the character and a more regal quality that can keep the sillier elements more balanced and believable. And that would be Meryl Streep for me. She's played some outlandish characters, but she does so without feeling gimmicky. She'd also bring a more prestigious essence to the character and the film as a whole. Okay, while I was hesitant to also recast Javier Bardem because his performance as Triton was very lacking and felt lazy, I actually think he does fit the role and he's capable of giving a strong performance, so he'd just have to be given the right direction and maybe some more takes or more rehearsal time. He's got it in him. Same goes for Awkwafina. She's a strong choice for Scuttle, but she needed more takes of her dialogue in some different direction. Hell, I think everyone did need different direction, to be honest, but that's why we're firing Rob Marshall. Those are the actors in particular who were just not delivering. Okay, before we get into how the story would unfold, let's talk about the design. Flounder would look like this, Sebastian would look more like this, Atlantica would exude actual imagination, fantasy, and grandeur. The kingdom would be made of an ethereal, shimmering pearl substance. Eric's palace would look less dungeonous and more magical, an enchanting Caribbean fairy tale. The whole film in general would have more scope, opulence, and pixie dust. Ursula, she would need to have a more striking look. I'd add prosthetics to make her features more sharp and angular. She'd have more refined makeup. I'd also add a subtle, sleek octopus squid texture to her skin to make more visual intrigue. I don't want her to look grotesque like Davy Jones, but intimidating in a regal fashion. Speaking of Davy Jones, the visual effects on Ursula should be as eye-popping as they were on him, because that was back in 2006 and looks more incredible than any CGI I've seen in recent years. So actually make the whole film with this level of visual craftsmanship. When it comes to Ariel herself, this is how I would want her to look. As for the hair, keep the locks mixed with the loose strands, but side part. More luscious, more otherworldly, more vibrant. Not cherry red, but a deeper copper color, because that muddy, mousy ginger just blends in with her skin and washes her out and makes her less distinctive as Ariel. I'd go with a wig, so she wouldn't have to go through all that trouble with her actual locks, and we'd be able to shape it and maintain it better. The seashell top from the animation is too iconic to just throw out, so this is a more cinematic take on that idea, and this would be the main one, but she'd also change to different variations made with different materials as well, just for variety, because this is a live action film, let's get the most out of it. And in addition to slightly more ethereal, princessy makeup that makes her stand out more, I just also really like the idea of subtle scale freckles that shimmer on her cheeks when she's in her mermaid form, because, like I said, lean into the advantages of live action, and one of the advantages of live action is textures and details that animation can't show. Take those opportunities so you're not just a lesser imitation of the animation. Her tail can stay as is because it's the most fantastical thing in the whole film. Okay, now it's time to get into the story beat for beat. Right off the bat, I'm making a bit of a polarizing decision, but I just want you to envision it and open your mind to how it could benefit the film. I'm going to be taking some pointers from classic Disney, as well as the live-action Cinderella, which is the best Disney live-action adaptation, and we're going to be framing the story through a warm storybook narration from Queen Selina. Not only would having a narrator bring a literary, cozy, mythological fairy tale vibe to the film, but it would also provide information in a much more natural way, so we wouldn't have instances like Ursula sloppily exposition dumping her whole life story and evil plan to herself in the way that she did. That was just cheap, forced, lazy, and juvenile. Boring, yawning, sloppy, lazy. Obviously, we wouldn't realize that the queen is the narrator until later, and the narration would only be used sparingly, but it would just make everything feel more seamless, smooth, tonally consistent. Narration gets a bad rap, but there are instances where it can enhance an experience, and I think this is one of those cases, which I'll get more into as we go along. Okay, so as the opening Disney logo is revealed, we distantly hear Fathoms Below being sung a cappella. We then push to the water under the castle until it takes up the frame, and we glide over it. We pan up to a ship in the ocean where sailors are singing Fathoms Below. The narration kicks in with something like, "The sea is the place that holds the most mysteries, myths, and stories. There's one particular story that blah blah blah," you get the idea. On the ship, amongst the sailors, we see a young Prince Eric, like 10 years old, showing his fascination and curiosity with the sea. His father, the king, expresses to him something along the lines of how he thinks the sea is the one place in the world that holds real magic, and every voyage he takes, he discovers at least one of its secrets. He gives Eric his little jade mermaid statue that he found on one of his voyages, but a gnarly wave causes him to drop it into the ocean. Eric gazes into the water, and we then descend down and are introduced to the undersea world. All the sea life, the kingdom, the palace, etc. We're gonna open with music because it's best to establish right away that this is a musical and not just have singing come out of nowhere. So all the mer people are gathered in a massive coliseum where an epic, ethereal undersea choir is performing a song to welcome back Queen Athena from her journey to another kingdom where she was working to strengthen foreign relations. The choir then presents the daughters of Triton, except for young Ariel, who is not present, and the girls sing an enchanting, jovial tune. Not the Daughters of Triton song from the original film. Maybe we can still use the melody and slow it down a bit and make it more operatic and cinematic, because honestly that song is corny and wouldn't work in this circumstance. So yeah, let's have an original song about celebrating the goddess of the sea or something. So while they're singing, the queen arrives on a seahorse carriage and everyone cheers as she reunites with her daughters, but she asks where Ariel is. We then see the queen being escorted to a young Ariel who's sick in bed. The queen excitedly greets Ariel and asks her how she caught an illness, and Ariel tells her that she had been exploring the shipwreck graveyard again and got sick, and her sisters tried to use their siren songs to treat her, but they aren't powerful enough to make her feel better. So yeah, in this version the siren song is not going to be some bewitching enchantment to mesmerize someone, but a tool to revive and heal to certain extents. So the queen uses her siren song with the iconic melody while placing a hand on Ariel's head to relieve her of her illness. Ariel says she feels good enough to continue exploring, and the queen laughs and says she still needs to stay and get some rest. We then have the queen telling Ariel about all her adventures, and she gifts Ariel with a souvenir, a music box that contains the tune from Part of Your World, starting from the I wanna be where the people are portion. The queen says she received it from a couple that she saved along with their child when their small boat was sinking. She pulled their boat to shore. Ariel is mesmerized, and we'll see the music box become her first ever trinket for her treasure trove. The queen says to Ariel that she believes humans and merfolk could live in harmony if they tried to understand each other's perspectives. Their differences may be unfamiliar, but unfamiliar doesn't mean bad. She wishes for peace amongst everyone, land and sea. We then see the queen in her seahorse carriage, assisted by her guards, while the narrator explains that she went on another expedition to another kingdom. She swims out of the carriage to explore and ends up getting caught in a fishing net. We then cut to Triton and his family grieving, implying that the queen didn't return. He comforts young Ariel with an embrace, which we linger on, and he pulls her tighter as if we're seeing his overprotectiveness manifest in real time. The narrator says the line from the original Hans Christian Andersen story, "But a mermaid has no tears, and therefore she suffers so much more." Fade to black. I love that quote, and I like that it was used at the beginning of the actual live-action film, but they didn't apply it to the story at all, so it served no purpose. In this version, it'll have a purpose. So we then see young Ariel swimming beyond the kingdom as the narrator tells us that despite Triton's orders to stay within Atlantica, Ariel was her mother's daughter and knew she would have wanted her to remain curious and passionate. As she's swimming, something catches her eye, and she goes to pick it up. It's the jade mermaid Eric had dropped into the ocean. She smiles and excitedly continues swimming, and then we seamlessly transition to teenage Ariel exploring, or whatever age she is for the rest of the film. We'll leave it ambiguously 18 or 19, and she's off exploring with Flounder and finds the shipwreck and the fork and the shark and all that, and then we see her going to the surface to find Scuttle. Yes, the surface. I don't want to maintain the whole she's never been to the surface shtick, because A, I like a more rebellious Ariel, B, Scuttle speaking underwater for as long as she did was just too jarring, C, it's way too convenient that the first time she ever goes to the surface happens to be when she sees her first human and saves him, and D, she believes her mother's word that humans and merfolk can live harmoniously. So yeah, the stuff with Scuttle happens. Scuttle does not eat a fish right in front of Flounder because that was an insane creative decision. Sebastian interjects and tells Ariel that she missed Triton's birthday celebration. She rushes home. Her sisters tell her that Triton is disappointed, but when Ariel goes to speak to him, he's trying to play it cool until it slips that Ariel went exploring, which makes him flip out, though he still doesn't know she went to the surface as well. After that, Ariel goes to her secret grotto with Flounder, and she's like, "Did you see how much he flipped out just because I went outside Atlantica? Imagine how he'd react if he knew I'd been going to the surface." She takes her mother's music box and sits with it. She tries to play it, but only a few distorted notes come out before completely going silent because it's old. Cue the Part of Your World sequence. The instrumental in the background starts off being quietly ethereal, hauntingly dreamy, otherworldly, and then as the song progresses, it builds to an epic, grand, sweeping, almost operatic piece with gorgeous cathedral choir backing vocals blending into the orchestration. As the song ends and the instrumental fades, she takes her little treasure hunting bag, straps it around her chest, and begins to swim out of the trove. But she spots the jade mermaid she had found as a child on her shelf. She holds it and just looks at it with melancholy as she drifts out of the trove. I think the fireworks happening right after her big I Want song is too convenient, and the moment in between is awkward, and it worked in the animation, but yeah, we're gonna cut to her exploring some more with a somber attitude. She has her little bag of treasures, and then she sees the fireworks and goes up to the ship, sees Eric for the first time, the storm comes, the shipwreck, yeah, but I want it to be more intense, visceral. After Eric is knocked into the ocean, I want his statue to glide off the ship and smack him unconscious, so you know he really is in a bad situation. I love that in the actual live-action film, Ariel saves Max. That was a cute little addition, and I think it would work very well here as well. And this whole sequence would parallel how Ariel's mother had told her she had helped humans, so yeah. I want to then cut to Ursula, who is not related to Triton because they are straight up different species. Yeah, she's looking, watching all the commotion from the bottom of the sea, and she can see stuff with her crystal ball, but she needs to use a bunch of potions on that thing to get it going, which is wasteful of her resources, so she isn't using it all the time. That would just give her too much power to see anyone anytime she wants. She would have been able to defeat Triton long ago if she had that ability. But yeah, she sees Ariel rescuing Eric and she's like, what do we have here? Triton's kid is saving a human, though she isn't supposed to leave the palace. So that prompts her to go to her crystal ball and use up some of her magic from her shelf to see what Ariel's up to. Then Ariel's on the shore with unconscious Eric. She's singing the Part of Your World reprise and uses her siren song to awaken him. Once again, the siren song is a healing power, not a hypnosis tactic. Okay, then Ariel's frightened back into the water when the guards go to retrieve Eric, but the gag is that Ariel's jade mermaid had fallen out of her bag, and Eric picks it up in the sand. He vaguely recognizes it from when he had dropped it in the ocean when he was 10 years old, and now fate has brought him back to it. When Ariel resumes the Part of Your World reprise from the rock, it needs to be epic as hell. That is the moment of the original film, so we need to emphasize how live action can make it a transcendent experience. As she sings, the ocean waves build, thunder in the distance rumbles, and when we reach the climax of the song, a huge wave crashes, lightning strikes in the distance, the camera simultaneously pulls back and rotates around her, the ocean is alive, the sky is alive, something is starting right now. We are left speechless and with goosebumps on our goosebumps. Now we can spend some time with Ariel and her sisters. We can show a bit of Eric in the castle with Queen Selena, and we'll also hint that the king had died in a shipwreck, so the queen is extremely overprotective and believes there are creatures and mysteries in the sea that are too evil and dangerous, etc. Then I want a duet with Eric and Ariel where they're longingly singing about the mystery of what's beyond and how they crave it. Maybe it could use the same melody as Wild Uncharted Waters, but you know, better. The song ends and Ariel realizes that someone had overheard her singing it. It's Ursula in her Vanessa disguise, but as a mermaid. And she intrudes on Ariel and she's like, "Oh, you poor thing, I know it's none of my business, but you sound like you're longing for something you can't have, and I know someone who can help you." She lies to Ariel, trying to convince her to go to Ursula's lair. even though she's Ursula, claiming that Ursula changes lives and had changed hers. She claims Ursula can help you correct your physical appearance, can help you find love, and so much more. Ariel responds by saying she's heard that Ursula was crooked and working with a type of magic that is too risky, so she declines. And Mermaid Vanessa is like, suit yourself, but if you get desperate, you know where to go, claiming that Ursula has been made out to be someone she's not, so that her magic isn't wasted by just anyone for any petty issue. Okay, then we have Ariel and her sisters hanging out, and Ariel is just in La La Land. She's completely tuned out, and the sisters confront her about it. She brushes it off and swims away. So then Ariel's with Flounder, and she's spiraling, saying she has to see Eric again, but doesn't know how, and then Sebastian interrupts, and cue Under the Sea musical sequence. Compared to the actual scene in the live-action film, this version has a lot more sea life, vegetation, and doesn't look so barren. The backgrounds are darker, richer, while the foregrounds are brightly lit with large rays of light that beam down. The song itself still very much has a calypso vibe, but a much more cinematic, adventurous energy with a massive choral ensemble. We got thousands of shimmery fish zooming by and twirling around while singing. We got newts playing the flute and cops playing the harp. Okay, not in the literal sense like the animated version, cause yeah, that doesn't translate well to live action, but like, you can have a newt making a flute sound with some organic sea material and a carp making a harp sound by striking its tail through some vegetation that's being held taut by another animal, etc, etc. You can do it, you just have to use your imagination. Don't just have those lyrics and then a visual that has nothing to do with what is being sung. Get creative. Okay, so Ariel's sisters overhear Sebastian's musical celebration of the sea out of context and join in, playfully twirling around Ariel, trying to get her to dance with them. Ariel is pulled in, starts enjoying herself, but then breaks away and begins singing a new verse of the song that goes something like, under the sea, I've spent my life here, I know the tides, it's prison to me. I want to go beyond the shore, the world has so much to explore, so play your music, my mind's still moving beyond the sea. Yeah. And her sisters are like, oh Ariel, you're such a teenager, one day you'll appreciate what you've got. Then they go into the big finale of the song, and of course, Ariel disappears. She's back in her grotto telling Flounder she's gonna go back to the shore and wait for Eric. Flounder tells her it's dangerous, and she's like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but there's something there that she feels is worth taking a risk for. Then we hear Triton's voice threateningly say, and what do you expect to come of that, Ariel? She's startled, he's angry, she doesn't know what to say, he's like, there's nothing you can do, you're a mermaid, you can't change that, you're risking your life for nothing. They argue, he destroys the grotto, it's scary, she cries, he shows remorse, fighting back his emotions, and then leaves. Ariel then, in an act of desperation and rage, flees to Ursula's lair, which we will actually be able to see in. This depiction of Ursula is more sultry, sinister, and intimidating rather than loud and goofy. Though she is by no means a serious lady, she's humorous and playful and eccentric in a more grounded way. But there are unexpected moments where she just absolutely goes unhinged and maniacal. When Ariel enters her lair, she sort of realizes that she made a mistake and reacted out of emotion and is now trapped with this crazy woman, and that feeling only progresses the longer she's there. This version of the Poor Unfortunate Soul song is sinister, sultry, and uses instruments like the harpsichord, organ, and cello, accompanied by a dark cathedral choir. And Ursula doesn't just manipulate Ariel into making a deal. The real manipulation was getting Ariel to come to her lair. She increasingly intimidates and subtly threatens her. She nonchalantly, passive-aggressively begins to scare the shit out of Ariel, going from gesturing to all the spooky stuff around them to pointing out the skeletons of the ones who couldn't pay the price with a wicked smirk. We'll keep the scale plucking instead of Ariel signing the contract because I like the whole bound in blood aspect. And to get Ariel to pluck the scale to bind the deal, Ursula nonchalantly grabs Ariel's arm, twists it, and digs her nails into it so Ariel will quickly react. I just like the idea of Ursula intimidating Ariel to make the deal, almost forcefully, rather than manipulating her, because, yeah, Ariel is a teenage girl who makes mistakes, but she's not dumb, and we've already seen her make plenty of mistakes at this point and react out of emotions, so this just adds an interesting layer to the film. Okay, so the land stuff. From a story point of view, that's where a lot of the actual live-action film's strengths lie, though visually it's still lacking and there are some huge missteps we'll get to. For the most part, we'll follow the basis of what the film actually did. I like that she was rescued by a fisherman, I like that she was taken to the castle and washed up by the staff and such. I would just want to spend a tad more time with her taking in everything, trying to walk, etc. And I do like the new song for the first time, and it's the rare new live-action song that actually fits with the rest of the soundtrack. But I would expand on it, change some of the lyrics to fit what's going on more, also dwell on the sad part more at the end. Really go for the Best Original Song Oscar. And I'd begin the song with Ariel attempting to sing, but nothing comes out, so then it just proceeds to be sung in her head. The way it goes down in the actual film is awkward, where we're in an extreme wide shot and just hear singing out of nowhere, and are like, where is this coming from? Isn't she supposed to be mute? I just don't like that. So yeah, things pan out as they do. Ariel is sad after her failed interaction with Eric, and this is where we lean into the Hans Christian Andersen, but a mermaid has no tears quote. Ariel cries for the first time, and it's a huge moment. She touches her tears and looks at them amazed, which just makes her cry more, but with a growing smile. Okay, we continue the way the actual film did with all the library stuff. That's the best addition the movie made. The difference with our version will be that Ariel sees the Jade Mermaid on the shelf and recognizes it. Eric addresses it but doesn't offer it to her. Maybe he's like, I'd give her to you, but she's just too special to me. I don't think I can give her up. Then he offers her to look around and take something else if she'd like. So yeah, it continues the way it does with them looking at the maps and such, so we'll move on to the next day when Ariel and Eric go out on the town. Ariel will be wearing a different dress because we're going to take advantage of having Halle Bailey as Ariel and put her in as many looks as possible. And also, I don't like this beachy area they go to. It very obviously is a set and the scale feels tiny, so we're moving the action to a more open, grand area of the town with rich architecture and such. And also, Ariel isn't just constantly ditching Eric, she's enthusiastically pulling him along everywhere. That would be so much more beneficial for the romance. Now the kiss the girl scene. First of all, it's going to be well lit. Give me a bright starry sky with dreamy moonlight, some light atmospheric fog looming over the water, more animals. Don't just put a blue cast over everything, show me some color. Look at how the night scenes in Cinderella were lit, that's all I'm saying. And I know the whole memory wiping spell thing that Ursula put on Ariel in the remake was to make the kiss more mutual, so it didn't seem like one person was trying to manipulate the other to kiss them. But that's just a sloppy, messy, convoluted way to navigate that thought. I personally would have just had Ursula emphasize that Eric has to kiss Ariel and he has to want it. I don't know, there's a better way to go about this, but the whole amnesia thing is pointless and dumb. During the song break in Kiss the Girl, I want to keep the moment of Eric talking about the stars, but I want him to mention that his father was the one who taught him the constellations, and then he gets all choked up by remembering his dad. A tear rolls down his cheek and Ariel gently wipes it for him, still fascinated with the idea of tears, but also as a gesture. He looks to her lovingly and is like, "I'm sorry, I still don't even know your name." And we do the whole name guessing thing, but it's more intimate and emotionally locked in. She still uses the stars to have him guess her name, and it's even more cute with the added sensitivity, so yeah. When Ariel and Eric are back at the palace, soaking wet, there's an opportunity to kill several birds with one stone. The actual film did not take this opportunity, and that ultimately had a negative impact on it, but we're doing so here. So they're caught by Grimsby, who informs them that they are late for Eric's birthday celebration. The maids dress Ariel in her iconic pink ball gown so she can get her Disney princess moment, and in a grand ballroom with a bunch of guests, Ariel charms everyone with her quirkiness and unconventional perspective. In the actual live-action film, Ariel never interacts with the Queen until the finale, but establishing that dynamic was essential, especially for the Queen's arc of accepting merfolk. So here we see the Queen being delighted by this peculiar girl who came out of nowhere. Eric and Ariel dance in front of everyone, and the Queen sees a spark between them. That night, Ariel goes to bed feeling excited and accepted and like she belongs. So the scuttlebutt will absolutely not be happening, thank you. That time can be dedicated elsewhere. But when Ariel wakes up in the morning, Scuttle does still inform her of an engagement party, and she sees that the maids had set out a lavish teal gown for her. Because, I mean, the character of Ariel is always associated with this random teal gown she never wears, so let's give it to her. It's an excuse to put Hallie in something extravagant again. She rushes down the stairs in her teal gown, and that's when she discovers that Vanessa is the one Eric is getting engaged to, but she only sees her from behind because she would recognize her face from when she was in the mermaid form. Vanessa also has two cats, which are Flotsam and Jetsam in disguise. Ariel runs into the ocean in her big gown and swims to her rock, etc., etc. Scuttle discovers Vanessa's identity and informs Ariel. Ariel goes to find Vanessa, running into the room Vanessa was getting ready in, but it's empty. She turns around and Vanessa is standing in the doorway like, "Oh, it looks like you did visit Ursula after all. I hope she gave you everything you wished for." Ha 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 ha. She unleashes an evil laugh and locks Ariel inside the room. Ariel tries to break down the door, but it won't budge. She ends up ripping her skirt and using it as a rope to climb out the window. The engagement party takes place on a ship because that heightens the stakes for Ariel. She has escaped the room, but now she has to get on the ship. She swims to it. Time is running out. She gets to the ship, tackles Vanessa to the ground. They have more of a cat fight than they did in the actual film, and things unfold accordingly from there. Sun goes down. Ariel is a mermaid again, has her voice. Ursula pulls her overboard, and once they disappear underwater, everyone on the ship is silently stunned. Eric is running around panicking like, "We have to do something." Grimsby is like, "I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do up here." And Eric begins to cry, feeling hopeless. His mother comes to him and embraces him. Meanwhile, Ursula is using Ariel as bait to get to Triton. He shows up, hands his trident over to Ursula in exchange for Ariel. We're gonna have Ursula turn him into a little sea worm thing. Ursula uses her new powers to grow into a giant kaiju sea goddess while an intense storm manifests. We can see this all very well, by the way, and there isn't just an ugly blue cast over everything. It's vivid and lively, but menacing and gloomy. The storm escalates, the sea comes alive, a volcano erupts, so Ariel has to dodge debris, lava, and volcanic rock, in addition to trying to avoid getting killed by Ursula. Now, Ariel's sisters arrive on seahorses and help Ariel battle Ursula with spears and tridents. Ursula is about to wipe out her sister when cannonballs from Eric's castle suddenly fire away at her, so both merfolk and humans are working together to defeat Ursula. but she's just too powerful. When Ursula gets Ariel in her sights and is about to blast her with the trident, Eric, who's steering a ship, impales Ursula with it, which causes her to drop the trident onto a cluster of rocks, but she isn't killed. Ariel gets a hold of the trident and points it at Ursula. Ursula cackles at her as if she's too pathetic to be capable of doing anything with the trident, but Ariel suddenly blasts Ursula with the trident until she bursts into sea foam. Eric, injured, lays beside Ariel on the cluster of rocks. Ariel says to him, "You saved me," and he says, "You saved me first." She looks to his injury, places her hand on it, and uses her siren song to mend him. Ariel sees glowing beneath the surface and goes to check it out, and it's her father being revived, and they have their moment, etc., etc. That morning, Ariel is watching the castle from her rock while singing a new reprise of Part of Your World that is similar to the second reprise that she sings in the actual live-action movie. Triton watches his daughter contemplating. Ariel's sisters, as well as Sebastian and Flounder, join him, encouraging him to make Ariel human. Eric, who has been looking out to the sea from the castle terrace, sees a bright magical light as well as waves building, so he heads down to the shore. We cut to Ariel as the waves rise around her. The water wraps around her and then solidifies into an ethereal metallic gown. Eric reaches the shore, sees Ariel emerging from the sea, singing the "Now We Can Walk, Now We Can Run" reprise of Part of Your World that was cut from the original animated movie. They kiss, etc., etc. At their wedding, which is on a boat, Triton gives both Eric and Ariel amulets that allow them to transform into merfolk whenever they wish to visit their family in Atlantica. When Ariel says goodbye to her father, she wipes a tear from his cheek, paralleling when she cried for the first time. Beautiful sweeping shot of them setting sail into the sea. The narrator begins to bring everything to a close, and we see her and see that she had been telling the story to some people of the kingdom. Children are gathered around her in a candlelit room. As we pull back, we see that there are also merfolk listening from within a large indoor fountain/pool. We continue to pull back out of the castle, gliding over the sea, while the chorus sings Part of Your World. We find Ariel and Eric on a voyage. The end. Halle Bailey and Jodie Benson singing Part of Your World over the end credits. Okay, obviously there'd be more details and depth and it would be more refined, but that generally is my vision for a live-action adaptation of The Little Mermaid. I'm curious to hear your ideas. What vibe would you go for? How would the visuals look? What moments would you add? Is there anything you'd like to see within the particular story? Okay, I'm feeling long-winded and delusional, so I gotta go. Hope you enjoyed. Share if you did, don't if you didn't. But you have no taste if you didn't. Bye!